Hi, this is Gabe from MotoringFile, and I'm here with a very special guest, somebody who has been a friend of MotoringFile and myself and White Roof Radio and others over the years, and has really shaped the Mini brand in the United States. You're going to argue with me, but I would say more than any other person over the past 15 years. Pat McKenna.
I wouldn't say that.
I'm going to say it. And we're going to go for a drive, Pat and I, and we're going to talk about your career, a little bit of BMW, but mostly Mini. Mm-hmm. And it's because you are retiring at the end of this year. And so, huge congratulations.
Thank you.
In retrospect, when we were talking at MTTS this summer, I realized, in retrospect, that you had that sort of feel, that sort of like, you know, this is an incredible thing that I'm walking away from, and kind of wistfully thinking about the past.
Yeah.
But you're doing it, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, my actual eligible date for retirement was July 1st, but there was no way that I could consider not doing Mini Takes the States and a few other things along the way.
Well, you've got to see the year out as well, and there's a couple more product launches to deal with.
And we're here. It's also very fitting. We're here.
We're in South Carolina.
Greenville. And we will unveil for the first time in person the convertible this evening. Mm-hmm. And the convertible really rounds out this entire portfolio that we have launched just over the last, it's hard to believe, just in the last 9 months of production. So it's really the perfect time for a baton toss.
So you started at BMW, and you started in if I recall correctly, in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it was a pretty incredible moment for BMW just in general. And you started in marketing, is that right?
Yeah. So so to go way back to my origins, I was a car enthusiast as a kid. I had a German neighbor growing up who was really into cars and had quote unquote foreign cars. And they looked exotic to me. They were just like, and he went through different phases, through like a French phase and a Swedish phase, like with old Saabs, and it was just really, that's what kind of ignited me on cars. And I wanted to go into filmmaking, but I didn't want to have a feast or famine kind of, existence. Because that can be really tough if you don't make it.
You don't make it, yeah.
So advertising became this kind of marriage of kind of business and creativity, and I got super, super lucky. This is a true story. If you've got time,
We're stuck in the car.
Yeah, we're stuck in it. You're stuck with me. I worked in the deli business in high school and college for 7 years. And a guy came into the deli with a shirt that said BMW, and on the back of the shirt it said the Ultimate Advertising Agency, Ammirati and Puris. And Martin Puris was the guy who wrote the tagline, The Ultimate Driving Machine. So
really?
I was kind of desperate to get into advertising. It was a kind of a challenging time in the industry, like in the economy. And so this guy's girlfriend worked at the agency, and she started to help me without even knowing me.
Wow.
So I'm bringing her to New York City. She lives in California. In December, we're going to have a celebratory dinner with all of our old...
Wow, that's so cool.
So the reason I'm telling you is, like, for anyone listening, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Try to help someone. You never know what will come of it, because she changed the trajectory of my life. And that was a media agency, and I was working on BMW and Reebok and MasterCard, and then did a few other things in advertising, and then came to work for BMW in 1997.
So you went
in-house and managed my former agency. Which is
hilarious and awesome.
Yes. But that started my 27-year career So it was at first media, then it went into creative, and definitely the pinnacle of that was BMW Films, which was just an amazing experience. And this is where my original love of filmmaking kind of came in, and was like a dream come true to be able to work with all these amazing directors.
I mean, that's once in a lifetime sort of stuff. And BMW Films was, of course, a watershed moment, not in just BMW history, but in marketing history, because it was the first, modern sort of true pieces of film that, while they advertised products, the products were there in the background. They were short stories.
Yeah. They were the film critic from Time magazine, Richard Corliss. He said feature films in miniature. It's really hard to get a feature film into 7 minutes, but it was such a great project. But this is another true story. I would go home late at night. 4 a.m. and I would say to my wife, we're either going to be heroes or we're going to get fired. And I truly believed it, because that's how kind of out there we were.
Yeah.
So it was nice not to get fired.
Nice not to get fired. So obviously it went on to become an incredible success. It's at the MoMA now. As an exhibit of what's the sort of the pinnacle of art within advertising.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
It's in the permanent collection in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, as kind of an example of popular culture in the year 2001.
So from there you went on and worked on a number of different things at BMW. One of them I find fascinating is the original iPod integration with BMW, which I can still remember to this day, going to the dealer and buying my little kit. But there you have an incredible story behind that. Within this process, of course, you met Steve Jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like?
That was pretty surreal, to use that expression. And it's he was dressed exactly the way you would see him in pictures.
So
it was
mock turtleneck,
jeans, and New Balance.
New Balance,
yeah. And he could not have been more gracious. And the project was kind of, I think sometimes the coolest projects are the ones, the common thing between the films and working with Apple, and even sometime later on Mini working with Pandora, they were kind of small skunkworks projects that were kind of under the radar. And in the case with Apple, there was a brand manager, actually the iPod manager, Stan Ing, and he wanted to get rid of all the wires that he had kind of plugged in, and aux cable and everything. So it started a collaboration to integrate. We were the first car company to integrate into the head unit, and Mini benefited from that same project. And so my job was to do the advertising for this collaboration.
And Steve Jobs was obviously very supportive of this, but he also gave you some unsolicited advice.
Yeah,
sounds like.
So he was super positive about the advertising, and I was saying that we were at BMW, we were always looking at Apple's advertising, and he said, we have your advertising as kind of a benchmark. So it was a bit of a love fest, and then he started to get into giving me feedback about BMW cars, and he said, I really believe that the Z8 BMW was the most beautiful car ever designed. But then he gave me some colorful language that I won't say about the phone, because the phone in the car...
The phone in the car, which was a wired phone, right?
A wired Motorola CPT 8000, I think it was called. And that was the only phone you could get in that car. He was quite vocal about how he felt about that phone.
I love, for one, he has great taste, because of course the Z8 is a beautiful car.
Yes.
That's hard to argue with that. But two, just the simple fact that, he was supporting, that process and that project is amazing. Because you think about where it's at now, and the integration that we have in front of us. We're driving in a brand new Mini Countryman S. We're looking at a mostly round screen,
Yeah.
with, of course, Apple CarPlay fully integrated, as well as others. But what I find fascinating, I'm going to bring it to the modern day product for a split second, is that the actual UI in this vehicle and the map that I'm looking at right now, which is Mini's own, I prefer over CarPlay. I mean,
Right.
you know, in a sense, Mini and BMW have done such an incredible job, you know, with infotainment and with the operating system itself, that it really truly rivals what Apple is doing, which is incredible.
I watched your 15-minute video on this topic last night, and I think you did a great job, because the CarPlay solution here is not using the full OLED.
Mm-hmm.
And another interesting thing is this is using an Android operating system.
Underneath it all, it's incredible.
So this is really a first for Mini, and a first for the car company. And you know, the audience isn't seeing what we're seeing, but to see the nav in the full round OLED is pretty awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it updates so cleanly and quickly, it's just amazing. So I'll bring it back to your origin story here, but just to kind of think about, you know, that moment with Apple those years ago and fast forward to today, it's quite a journey. So you went obviously from BMW to Mini. Tell me a little bit about that, and then tell me a little bit about the products that you were just kind of thrown into, because, you know, you led product before you got your hands on marketing at Mini. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I think it's a testament to the company of promote from within. So I sat down with our CEO at the time. His name was Jim O'Donnell, from Scotland, from Glasgow, and I sat down with him and I said, you know, I think I'm ready for a change of scenery. Allowed me to go back and work for Jim McDowell, who was a big part of my career starting in 1997.
Yeah.
And even before that, when I was on the agency side.
And so
it was like going back to my mentor.
When you got to Mini, it was right before the brand expanded pretty dramatically.
So I started in December of 2010, and I still remember this. We sold the first 575 R60 Countryman that month. So that was it was right before we went into 2011, and this was 2010 was still a little bit of a kind of a post financial crisis year. So sales were up slightly, 0.1%, but the Countryman really was this, you know, all-wheel drive, four-door. It literally opened up so many more possibilities for us. And what might be hard to believe, but looking back on it, in the years 2011, 2012, the number one reason for buying a Mini was miles per gallon.
Yeah.
And number two was fun to drive. So I think the core audience, you know, the Miniacs were always there, but during those years, you had a lot of people who were just, you know, just coming in because it was a small car.
Small car, looked efficient and fun.
And
probably.
fun, and people were getting gas pump fatigue. You know, what people don't realize is that in 2008, there was like a gas crisis. Even before the financial crisis, there was kind of a gas prices spiked, and Mini sales spiked in 8 and then again in 2012.
So that's really interesting. So you came on board with the Countryman, and the brand expanded pretty greatly, and then from there you really started, I assume at that point, started to really turn your focus on the next generation, which at the time was the F series cars.
Yeah.
And so that's the F56, which is the Cooper, the new Countryman, the F60, and then of course convertible and four-door derivatives of the F56 as well. What was that like? Because that's a massive change, because now you went from a bespoke platform to a BMW platform sort of architecture, if you will, and you know, probably, I assume, a lot higher expectations as well.
Yeah, higher expectations, and I think the thing that was happening, as we say, an external factor, you know, things that we don't have any control over, fracking started. So fracking and kind of an oversupply of oil led to really low gas prices. And
interesting.
Guess what? Americans love big cars.
Yeah.
So it made it hard for all small cars in America. We're one of the lucky ones that really survived.
Yeah.
Having,
yeah, when you think about it, there's not a lot left.
No. And I think, if you go back to look at the original press release from Mini, it said the first premium small car. And I think we really have lived up to that, 22 years later, that we absolutely are the premium small car.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of others that have fallen away. They don't even either exist anymore, they don't sell in the U.S. market anymore. So I think it's really amazing, and I think it's a testament to all of the customers out there, the Miniacs, who just love this brand and are really the secret of the success.